Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for the high-level meeting of Caring for Climate. This is our 8th annual meeting convened with our partners, the United Nations Environmental Programme and UN Climate Change, and this year co-hosted with Race to Zero, a global campaign of the high-level champions for climate action, Mr. Nigel Topping and Mr. Gonzalo Munoz, who is here with us today. We are also honored to have leaders from government, business, UN and civil society joining us today to strengthen global efforts for bolder and more ambitious climate action from all stakeholders. 5 years after the Paris Agreement was negotiated, we will reflect on the progress made since 2015 and how companies, cities, and investors can help put the world on a path towards green recovery as we collectively deal with this pandemic. And on the eve of the Paris Accord anniversary, we are reminded that the promise of agreement remains an inspiration to us all. At the UN Global Compact, we are working with companies across the globe to make the goals of the agreement a reality. In 2015, along with our partners at CDP, WWF, and the World Resources Institute, we launched an ambitious effort, the Science-Based Targets Initiative, with the aim to enlist 250 companies by 2020. And today, more than 1,000 companies spanning 60 countries and nearly 50 sectors are working with the initiative to reduce their emissions at the pace and scale that is necessary. We are witnessing a transformation, but yet our current trajectory foresees global warming of more than 3% by the end of the century. There is still time to take the concrete, life-preserving action needed of all of us to ward off an untenable future, but only if we act decisively and urgently. With the campaign Business Ambition for 1.5 Degrees, we challenge companies to align their science-based targets with a 1.5 degree pathway to ultimately reach net zero emissions by 2050. The campaign is one of the initiatives under Race to Zero, which calls for radical collaborations to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. This year has indeed been a sobering one. The challenges that economies around the world have faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic are unlike any other in modern history. Pandemics do not recognize political boundaries, and neither does climate change. Our impression is that the companies whose corporate ethos is driven by values, principles, and leadership have proven their ability to respond to multiple crises, and their resilience is a result. These companies have demonstrated their path to a greener recovery by prioritizing sustainable and inclusive growth. We need to scale up this movement by ensuring that science guides our efforts, and businesses and governments around the world unite for a socioeconomic transformation to a zero carbon economy. In today's dialogue, we will also understand the role of business in helping governments enhance their nationally determined contributions and supporting partnerships and multilateralism for the strongest response to the climate emergency. Many of you have already contributed through your leadership, and we thank you. But I urge you to continue to lead by supporting your governments and encouraging other corporates to work towards a net zero future. We stand ready to support you through our local networks around the world. Today, I look forward to meaningful dialogue moderated by Gonzalo Munoz. But first, let us hear from the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency, Antonio Guterres. Thank you.
I thank the UN Global Compact, UNFCCC, the High-Level Climate Champions, and the UN Environment Programme for convening this meeting. I also extend my appreciation to all the leaders present today. It is encouraging to see how businesses are responding to the twin crises of the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Through Business Ambition for 1.5, more than 340 CEOs are stepping up to align their company emission targets with a 1.5 degree future and the goal to reach net zero well before 2050. Under the Race to Zero, these business leaders are joined by hundreds of mayors, governors and investors, universities and civil society organizations. Yet, despite such promising developments, we are still far from where we need to be 5 years after the Paris Agreement. The world is off track and multilateralism itself is being questioned precisely when we need it most. To recover from the pandemic, we need effective climate action. In the process, we can create millions of jobs, promote cleaner technologies, and vastly improve global health. 2021 must be the year in which the world leaps forward into a net zero future. To that end, I urge all of you to take or advocate for 6 climate-positive actions. Invest in sustainable jobs. Ensure no more bailouts to polluters. Shift taxation from income to carbon, from taxpayers to polluters. End subsidies for fossil fuels, especially coal. Include climate risks in all decisions and disclose your climate-related financial risks. Work together with a common purpose to leave no one behind. I am pleased to say that we have seen some hopeful movement. The European Union, along with Japan, the UK, the Republic of Korea and more than 110 other nations, has pledged carbon neutrality by 2050. And China says it will be carbon neutral before 2060. By early next year, with the pledge of the incoming United States administration, I expect countries representing more than 65% of global carbon dioxide emissions and more than 70% of the world economy to have committed to carbon neutrality. I look forward to further ambitious commitments being announced at the Climate Ambition Summit on the 12th of December. These announcements send unmistakable market signals to investors ready to fund a faster global transition. I urge you all to support a green recovery in your countries. I hope you will help your governments to strengthen their nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement well in advance of COP26 and consistent with the net zero pathway. I count on your leadership. Our collective future is at stake, and I thank you.